Nation's Restaurant News is launching the 2025 Menu Masters collaboration video series, and this season is our most exciting yet. Join us behind the scenes as the 2025 Menu Masters award-winning chefs from Chili's Grill and Bar, Wendy's, True Food Kitchen, Fuzzy's Taco Shop, Iron Hill Brewery and Restaurant, and digital innovator Alexandra Lourdes team up with top students from Johnson & Wales University for a live culinary collaboration. Their goal is to create a unique menu to be served only at the Menu Masters celebration, sponsored by Ventura Foods on May 17th in Chicago. Make sure you subscribe now to the Menu Masters YouTube channel and don't miss an episode. For more info on the Menu Masters celebration, visit menumasters.com. Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision-makers. This week, I'm talking with Shannon Allen and Zach Cohen, the founder and CFO of the Miami-based fast casual concept Grown. Shannon opened this concept with her husband, NBA Hall of Famer Ray Allen, in 2016. Driven by the fact that their son Walker was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was just a toddler, and Shannon struggled to find healthy foods served fast that she could feed him. Grown aims to disrupt the restaurant industry by serving fresh, nutrient-dense foods using organic ingredients in a counter-service setting that includes a drive-thru window. As the tagline states, it's real food cooked slow for fast people. Shannon's big dreams for Grown hit a wall with COVID, but now she's brought Zach on board, and they've developed a franchise model leveraging shipping containers that they think can help them quickly scale while keeping costs low. The two joined the podcast to talk about the evolution of healthy eating and why Grown can succeed as a health-forward concept where so many others have failed. In this interview, you will learn more about why there is a shift in how Americans are perceiving processed foods, why it might be easier to find 100 people who believe in you than to raise $100 million, and why a turnkey franchise solution offers opportunity for people who previously faced barriers to business ownership. As always, be sure to subscribe to Takeaway on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also leave your feedback on those platforms. A little bit of love goes a long way in getting more listeners. You can also follow me on TikTok, where I will be sharing special insights from this show, but also other exclusive content, including a look behind the scenes at my industry travels and experiences. Go follow me at Takeaway Sam. That's at Takeaway Sam. Jumping now into my interview with Grown founder Shannon Allen and CFO Zach Cohen. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview, as I will share my 7 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I am sitting down with Shannon Allen, the founder of Grown, and Zach Cohen, the CFO for Grown. Shannon, Zach, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Sam. So excited to see you again.
Likewise, Shannon, I have been following you now for, I guess, probably 7 or 8 years, really since the origins of Grown, and have loved this concept. I visited the concept when I was in Miami a few years back. Really believe in what you're doing. But for those who have not been to Miami recently or who are not familiar, let's just start at the beginning and sort of the origin story of Grown. Tell me more about that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Sam, by the way, thank you for being a Grown brand ambassador all of these years. We still, to this day, I think I have a copy of the QSR magazine that I was on the cover of, the 40 issues. So thank you for that. Thank you. And hello to everybody in the kind of NRN family. So a little bit about Grown. I really, as you know, had no intentions of being a food entrepreneur. I was a singer and an actress. My career started out in a girl group on Motown Records, and then I got into the acting world. I was the owner of the Pink Dog on Blue's Clues and was in Girl Fight, which won at Sundance. I was even in, the first season or second season of Sex and the City. So my background was largely in front of the camera through music, TV, and film. In 1996, I met and fell in love with my husband, Ray Allen, who is arguably, I'm not even going to say arguably, he is the greatest three-point shooter in NBA history.
Yep.
And, when Ray and I met in 96, it became very obvious to me very early on that food was required to get him to his next athletic performance. So I did what any clear thinking person would be. And that would go to the person in his life who makes the meals for him. And that was my mother-in-law. And so God bless Flora Allen Hobson. She really taught me everything that she knew about food and food preparation. And that kind of rocking of the knife became a part of my life. So I was doing TV and film and music, and I kind of thought that was my life. I even came up with this food TV show called The Pregame Meal, where I showed busy families, soccer moms, how to make tailgating food healthier. I had a professional chef and a professional athlete on every episode, and that was a hit in the Boston market when we played for the Boston Celtics. And I kind of thought, well, then this is my life, right? Like, an actor, I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, and essentially a TV producer. And I also have this very cool thing where I make pregame meals for my husband and all of his friends that are professional athletes. And then in 2008, during the Lakers Celtics finals, our lives changed forever. Our middle child, Walker, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in a very dramatic fashion. He was just 17 months old at the time. And between a Monday and a Friday, I found myself at an LA area hospital and heard the words from an attending physician that no parent ever wants to hear, which you guys are both parents. A doctor looked at me and said, "Your blood sugar is supposed to be between 70 and 120. Walker's is 639. He has type 1 diabetes and he's entered a phase of diabetes called ketoacidosis, which essentially means his blood sugar is poisoning him to death. And if he doesn't get insulin soon, you're going to lose him." And so that was a very heavy moment. It was a terrifying moment. I kind of heard myself say, "I don't know anything about diabetes and I don't know what insulin is, but I'm not leaving here without my baby." And that was kind of the moment that everything changed for me. I became a different person, mom, wife, an advocate, and an activist. I sat on the international board of directors for the JDRF and was raising millions of dollars for research for a cure. Walker was, at that point, at 17 months old, he was really primarily breastfed and had some organic whole foods in his diet, like sweet mashed potatoes, some broccoli ground up, and like organic free range chicken. He didn't have a lot of foods in his diet. And so I was thinking a lot about food in general, caring for an insulin dependent baby. And one night I was on my way to Whole Foods to buy stuff to make dinner. And I looked back at Walkie and he was in his car seat and he was like kind of slumped over a little bit. And I quickly pulled over on the side of the road and checked his blood sugar, pricked his finger, and it was 40 and falling. And, before COVID, like diabetes was the pandemic of our time. Just about every person we knew either had diabetes or has a family member that has type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes. And so this is a big problem for people. And I kind of looked around the highway like, what can I get him out of a drive-through window? And it was, all the big boys, right? The ones that we go to, the ones that we grew up on. But in that moment, I felt panicked as a parent for the first time because here was this baby that was counting on me. He was already insulin dependent. And now I could not give him anything that I felt good about. It was like a glazed donut, a taco where the first ingredients, there's 98 ingredients, something that came out of a freezer and went into a fryer later. None of it was real food. And so I quickly drove to a friend's restaurant, jumped over the counter, got him out of the danger zone. And then I came back home and kind of sat on my shower floor and had a pity party. And then I realized okay, no one's coming to save you. And if this is a problem for you, this is just a problem, period. And so I picked up the phone and I called my husband, Ray, and said, if nobody has big enough balls to reinvent fast food, I'm going to do it. And that was the moment that Grown was born. That was my aha moment. And that was in 2008. And so for the next couple of years, I spent all of my time and a lot of my resources assembling a kitchen cabinet of experts, doing a ton of market research, raising some money, and we opened our flagship location of Grown, which is essentially real food cooked slow for fast people. In South Miami, we have a 1,900 square foot flagship location. And in year one, we did $3 million of top line revenue. And, it was just such an unbelievable feeling, Sam. And anybody that's watching that knows what it feels like to carry the burden of an idea that you're so desperate to kind of get out of the cage and onto the stage. But there was this incredible validation for me because every single person that I talked to about this said, "You're crazy. You're the really wrong person to do this. This is never going to get done. If fast food could get reinvented, somebody a lot smarter than you with deeper pockets would have done it already. By the way, you are the really wrong person, a woman of color, married to a professional athlete with 5 kids, one of whom has a life-threatening medical condition. Like, you can't do this."
Mm.
And I'm so glad I didn't listen to that. 16 years ago, and I just trusted my gut. Because look, at the end of the day, like God doesn't care what people think is impossible.
Hmm.
And the world then was just almost ready for the reinvention of fast food. But boy, in 2025, is it really ready for it now?
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that because I do think we can get into it a little bit here. But I mean, when Grown first opened, I mean, there was a real surge in more health oriented concepts. Certainly, fast casual was kind of really elevating more healthy concepts. But I've covered this industry for 16 years now, and I've seen a lot of concepts come and go. And so there is a right way to do it, and definitely a not right way to do it. But just to really touch off on, and again, I've had the pleasure of being at that flagship location in Miami, and I think really important to point out. First off, aesthetically beautiful,
Thank
such a wonderful looking location, and the food very high quality. This is not your indulgent fast food kind of stuff. You guys have salmon on the menu and all that. But there is a drive-through. I mean, I think that's really a point to hit on here, which is you figured out how to serve a much more high quality experience and clearly better for you food out the drive-through window. How did you figure that how did you figure out, like, crack the code to doing that at Grown?
You know, it wasn't easy, honestly. I mean, and this is the part I think that was the sticking point for most people that were first hearing about the concept. They were like, we don't understand. Like, why does this matter? Why isn't being a restaurant or a true QSR enough for you? And I said, if it's a true QSR and it's a restaurant, it's not going to solve my problem. And if it doesn't solve my problem, then it's not going to solve busy parents, busy families, active seniors, people on the goes problem. Most people don't have the luxury of a 40 to an hour long window for lunch or a quick meal. They just don't have that time. And most people don't have $40 for a meal. So we have to figure out a way to make this accessible and affordable to everyone. And for me, having a mom that worked 90 hours a week, owning and operating an independently owned real estate company, we hit the McDonald's drive-through window all the time. I mean, if my mom and dad could pay their bills in the 70s and 80s and hit the McDonald's drive-through window for a Happy Meal, it was like check off one in the win column for Jackie, right? And so for me, I had four babies in car seats at that time. And it was like, how do I do this? And the answer was keep it simple. We make sure that we are preparing food all day long. So there are certainly a bunch of things that are made to order. Like if you come in and you want to order a fresh pressed green juice or a smoothie, we're going to make that to order because you don't get any of the benefits of the nutrients if you don't drink that fresh pressed juice within 20 minutes. But what we've done is prepped all of the fruits and vegetables that go into that fresh pressed juice. So when you walk in the door and you say, hey, I want to love greens, we already have a handful of spinach, kale, celery, green apple, ginger, parsley ready to go that's just popped in the juicer. So it's not going to take 25 minutes. It's going to take 2.5 minutes. So for us, the real secret sauce was food prep. So a lot of times what we're doing is just assembly.
At the beginning, I know that you envisioned this as a concept that could be scaled. Now, I think it was COVID that kind of put the brakes on that because you and I have talked for many years now, and I've seen your vision for this thing, and you see this all over the country someday. And obviously, we don't need to get into the details of COVID. We all remember what happened then.
Yeah.
But tell me about how perhaps your strategy for Grown has evolved over the years.
So in the beginning, I thought we were going to have to scale through the company-owned store model. I thought no one else is going to care about this. No one else is going to understand how or why this needs to be done. This is my baby, and I have to own all of these so that I can have control. So we scaled very quickly. Within 18 months, we had 6 units. They were either open or under contract, and then we had an additional 6 units under contract with LOIs to be opened. We also had a licensing deal with the largest ghost kitchen company in the nation and a licensing deal that was an operating participation agreement with Sodexo slash Centerplate in stadiums, football stadiums. We started at Hard Rock Stadium. That's a lot of scaling in 18 months. I mean, if COVID hadn't happened, I think we probably would have had 12 to 20 physical locations plus the licensing deals and maybe licensing deals even in airports because we had started having those conversations and some really big conversations with venture capital and private equity. But what happened right before COVID was really a game changer for us. And that was a visit from the father of franchising, the Mary Poppins of the franchising world, if you will. And that's George Nadoff, the founder of Boston Chicken. George was 86 years old at the time, showed up at my door with this little carpetbagger kind of leather briefcase, sat me down in a booth for 6 hours, pulling out all kinds of stuff from, U Food Grill and Boston Market, Boston Chicken, and his learning centers, and basically wanted to impart on me the opportunity and the beauty of the franchise model, which I had never thought about before. The average person doesn't understand that if you go to a Burger King anywhere in America, these are all small business owners. There isn't a single Burger King that's company owned. But we see Burger King and we think, oh, that's the king. This is a massive conglomerate. This is a company owned empire. It's not. Every single Burger King is a small business owner to a degree. And so that's what George really wanted me to understand. He was very forthright. He said, look, people are going to start knocking you off. You have an incredible concept. If McDonald's is, call it a PC, grown as the iPhone X, you need to scale this thing and you need to scale it fast. Scale loves speed. And it's going to be a lot easier for you to find 100 people that believe in you than to raise $100 million. And he was 100% right about that. So I took George's advice and I set up our opportunity to be a franchise, our FTD, financial audits, a financial sales team, the brand standards manual, and I had that ready to go, and then COVID hit. So I basically put that on the back burner, closed 5 company stores, bared down on the flagship, doubled our revenue coming out of COVID. And then I looked at my team in 2024 and said, I'm going to reinvigorate all these documents. 2025 is going to be the year of the grown franchise. And by the grace of God, we did all of those things. And we were fortunate enough to welcome in this extraordinary entrepreneur and massive franchise success in Zach Cohen, who just came aboard as our new CFO.
Great segue into bringing Zach into the conversation. Zach, I want to start, Zach, with your story too, because I know that you have this history of entrepreneurship. Tell me a little bit about your story. And it sounds like you started in business pretty young.
Yeah, so I've been around entrepreneurs my entire life. My father, he started an accounting firm in Fairfield County, Connecticut. So, he was friends and we were close with all the entrepreneurs of Southern Fairfield County. So my life thinking about entrepreneurship was really just in my dad's accounting firm, watching him hustle. When I was 17 years old and I was a senior in high school, one of our neighbors asked us to remove a couch. She lived down the street. My brother and I literally carried the couch back to my parents' basement, and we sat on the couch, and my brother was like, I think we're onto something here. So I was a senior. I was about to go to UConn. Rest of that summer, my brother printed out thousands of flyers, and him and I would just go around in our car and just put all the flyers on everyone's mailbox. And then I went back to UConn, and he kept going with it. And eventually he quit his real estate job. And my junior year of college, I took a year off and basically told me this is going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to you. And at the time I was shocked, but he was actually right. I took off a year. That's when we really started to expand. So Hurricane Sandy hit, and that was a big explosion for junk luggers. And he called me back and he said, we're about to expand into New York City. And I want you to run New York City, New Jersey, and Long Island, which at the time sounded cool. But now looking back, that was way too big of a territory to manage. I basically said to him, I have no problem doing that, but you're talking about franchising. I want to be a franchise owner. I want to be a franchisor. So we came up with an agreement that I would start getting, and at this time I was 22 years old, I would start getting all the licensing and permits together. And when I was able to open, I would be one of the first franchise owners. So that was 2012. My brother ended up overseeing the corporate store of Westchester County and Fairfield County. I oversaw New York City, and then we franchised the concept out. And from 2013 to 2020, we ended up selling about 25 franchises. And it was a struggle, There's people that came on, they believed in myself and my brother and our family and the vision, but we had a lot of growing pains. And then COVID hit, and that basically blew us up. We ended up selling 1 franchise a week for the next 15 months. So we went from 25 franchises to about 100 by the end of 2022. So in 2022, my brother got approached by a lot of private equity firms. They really wanted to get more into the service industry. They were already in the trade industries like plumbing and HVAC and electrical. and they really wanted to get in the service industry. So a lot of people started approaching him saying, hey, we want to buy you. And my brother came to me and he's like, what do you think? And Shannon knows by this point after working with her for a month, but I'm the most loyal person in the world. So the thought of selling my baby and all these people that have been working with me in New York City alone, we had about 150 employees. When you take into account the franchise system, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of people that were working together. So April of 2022, my wife gets pregnant. We find out that I have neuroendocrine tumor, tumor on my pancreas, the exact same cancer that Steve Jobs had. And every single doctor gave me a different prognosis and a different strategy of how to do this surgery. So we ended up going with Mount Sinai because Dr. Debrisian, you could just see in her eyes that she wasn't going to give up until it was solved. And, she ended up saving my life. 3 years later, still cancer-free. In December 16th of 2022, we ended up selling both corporate locations and the franchise system, which was one of the greatest days in our lives. I never could have imagined starting this at 17 years old, we would ever be, a huge success story. But what it really did was it just changed my perspective on life. Part of what I firmly believe in is just leading from behind and leading with your heart, never being afraid to tell people, how you feel, never being afraid to show your emotions. And, I created something that forever is just so important to me. And I'm still pretty active with Junk Luggers, but for the next 2 years, we basically went through the transition of rolling off of Junk Luggers. And February 28th of 2025 was my last day. And March 1st, 2025 was my first day with Grown. And, we've hit the ground running. It feels so great to work with Shannon. She is so passionate about what she does. And people can feel that, I've been around entrepreneurship for the last 20 years and know deep down that this is going to be a huge success story. Keep telling Shannon, let's not sell to private equity and let's just enjoy the ride, because I know that it's going to come faster than we want. But ultimately, I've been super passionate about health and wellness. It's something that I avoided for 20 years. Before my daughter was born, I was 250 pounds, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, did not care about my health. I used to always brag that I would sleep when I'm dead. 3 years later, I'm 190 pounds. Every single day, exercise, every single day, cold plunge, every single day, sauna, every single day, get in my 10,000 steps, every single day, sleep for 8 hours. So it was just a complete 180. And when Shannon and I started talking, because I'm currently teaching at the University of Connecticut entrepreneurship, shout out to David Noble for connecting us. This is just something I'm super passionate about. And I think when Shannon and I talk, I just explained to people, I'm in cancer hospitals every 6 months, and my scans are coming up in 2 weeks from now. And every time I go there to get my MRIs, PET scans, blood work, the people that are there are just getting younger and younger. It is not, when I started this journey 3 years ago, everyone used to say that I was the youngest person there. Now it's just not that anymore. Last time I was talking to a 12-year-old boy. The generations are just getting younger and younger with cancer. We see it all over the news, but this is something we got to change. This is something that I strongly believe Grown is the answer for. We need to teach the next generation how to eat healthy, how to eat single ingredient food, how to care about their health. We can't just rely on modern medicine. We can't just rely on Ozempic. And, through Grown, I was telling Shannon, it's very rare that I eat out. Most of the time I do a meal prep or we cook at home. I just have a phobia of eating processed food anymore. When I went to Grown in Miami, it felt like a home cooked meal. It felt like something that was exactly like I would eat in my own home if I was prepping myself. And I think we are really onto something special here. And I'm just so proud to be part of this, and that Shannon took a risk with me, and to come on as CFO of such an amazing organization, I know that we're just going to be so powerful, and we're going to be on every single block in America in no time.
That's awesome, and congrats on being cancer free. That's amazing. Shannon, I imagine Zach's experience in franchising must have really appealed to you. And I want to kind of dig into that, which is, franchising it's a whole other business. I mean, the franchise part of it itself is a business, and then there's the business of Grown. First, why do you think Grown can work as a franchise? Because I know you meant, I totally agree with you as that, like, this is how you can leverage other people's passion and money to be able to scale. But what about Grown specifically do you think fits in the franchise model?
Well, I think it's a repeatable concept, right? I mean, I think part of what makes franchises so wonderful and so welcome in kind of the restaurant market or in the business world, if you will, is because there's something that gives you a sense of comfort in knowing that whatever market you go to, you jump off a plane and you want to get that Starbucks coffee, your whole milk latte with 4 shots of espresso and no sugar should taste and feel the same way everywhere you go. And there's something about that gives people this feeling of belonging. And I think right now in the world, there's so much going on that if we can do our part to create spaces where every single person feels a sense of belonging, then we've contributed to the well being of the nation and the world. And I mean, maybe it's like a high arching theme, but that's what Grown is all about. Grown is all about creating space where everyone feels welcome and everyone can find something that they love. We have a strong sense of responsibility for people that eat differently, whether it's because of food allergies or it's because of personal preference or it's because of ancestral DNA, whether you're 100% vegan or mostly plant based or on the paleo diet or the keto diet, or you have a gluten allergy or you have a sensitivity to blueberries or you're an ovo-lacto vegetarian. Everyone is going to be able to find something they can eat at Grown. And the world has changed so much, Sam, in the last 16 years since we probably first talked about this, and definitely in the last 9 years since we opened our doors. And busy people aren't just asking for better, they're also mad. We're seeing moms like burning their bras outside of Kellogg saying, no more seed oils, no more red number 5, no more highly processed ingredients, no more high fructose corn sugar, no more glyphosate, no more Syngenta. And they're not saying that because these are cute buzzwords. They're saying it because they're frustrated with the options. And why I think it Grown is perfect for the franchise model is because the franchise model allows us to scale expeditiously and exponentially without sacrificing quality. Our whole slogan is convenience without compromise. And with Zach and I kind of putting our heads together, with our joint passion, enthusiasm, and our collective passion for this mission, call it a ministry. My brand and my brand identity and ambassadorship and desire to really impart this on people's hearts, and Zach's wealth of experience, knowledge, and passion, and his whole journey through this cancer process and being in remission. I really don't know that there's a better duo, because what I lack, Zach makes up for in spades. And I am learning so much from him every single day. He has made me a better entrepreneur in a matter of weeks. I mean, even down to like our leadership meetings, I'm like, wow, okay, this is how you run a company. I mean, it's just leveled us up tremendously. And by the way, we've been doing this for 16 years. So it's not like we're some new kid on the block, but there's always opportunities for growth. And there's this great African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I really feel like Zach is the one that I've been waiting for. And we're not just excited about the franchise, we're excited about not only disrupting fast food, but disrupting how we franchise. So Zach and I have been really fortunate to bring in an unbelievable investor and a gentleman named Alan Lazowski. Alan isn't just an investor, he's a friend and he's a mentor, but he is one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the entire United States. He owns a company called Laz Parking. And anybody that's out there in NRN world, if you've been to a parking lot, if you've been to a hospital lobby, if you've been to an open air parking lot, there's a chance that it's a Laz parking lot. And so Laz owns 1.6 million parking spaces in the United States. He has over 15,000 employees, and he has 469 lots and 42 states. And essentially, he has built this extraordinary business. He started out as a valet in a parking lot, and he's built this extraordinary business, and he's essentially a people mover. So, having Laz as an investor, as a mentor, and as a friend, we kind of, through a conversation, came up with this idea. What if we could scale the Grown franchise? Of course, with traditional brick and mortar locations, we know what that looks like, Sam. A little bit more expensive, takes 18 to 24 months to get open. More costly. You're dealing with permitting, you're dealing with municipalities and zoning in different counties and communities. Or an alternative to the traditional franchise model, which is a grown to go container, where Grown flagship locations would be built out of recycled shipping containers and parked in last parking open air parking lots.
Interesting.
So now you're spending less than a fifth of the cost on a traditional brick and mortar, and we have you up and running and cash flow positive in 90 days.
Wow. And then you would theoretically partner with the franchisee. You would sell the franchise rights to a market, and then theoretically you're partnering your franchisee with the Lad's parking lots so that they have the access to that in their neighborhood. Essentially, is that how that works?
Exactly. So you're taking a lot of the stress from the franchisee and trying to find, where's the right place for me to go? Am I going to be able to find a location? How much rent am I paying? It's going to be way less expensive for someone potentially to rent 8 parking spaces in a Laz parking lot than to pay a traditional brick and mortar rent in a modern metropolis. So we're decreasing the cost of about a fifth of what it's going to cost for a traditional brick and mortar. And we're decreasing the time that it's going to take to get you open and actually serving customers, being a benefit to your community, and essentially creating impact and revenue. So when Zach and I think about what makes Grown super special, obviously what we're offering, we've reinvented the fast food experience, right? You can get a fresh green juice or a 6.5-ounce piece of blackened salmon with Brussels sprouts and sweet mash out of a drive-through window. That's already disruptive. But for somebody like us, 2 kids from Connecticut, my grandfather was the commissioner of minority small business for the state. The thought that we could take our entrepreneurial DNA and make this accessible and affordable to diverse founders who aren't traditionally bankable outside of an SBA 7A loan is really exciting for us, because now we're offering business ownership, an opportunity into the American dream, and creating generational wealth for your family in a much, much less stressful and financially complicated way.
Yeah. I want to dig into that in a second, but real quick, Zach, I'm curious from your perspective. You have this franchising background, so you partner with Shannon and with Grown, and I'm just curious when you came into this business and you discovered Grown, what was your perspective on it from that franchising level, as far as what was your thought process on how you could successfully grow Grown via the franchise model, which you were so familiar with?
Yeah, I think we have a really big opportunity here. When I think of the Grown to Go container, I think that will allow us the opportunity to do this in Black and brown communities, entrepreneurs that could be really successful but didn't have the opportunity that I had and Shannon had growing up. So for me, I think this is what I think is the most exciting, is that we're going to bring potentially entrepreneurs that never would have been entrepreneurs and allow them to be, future millionaires, billionaires, because just like my brother gave me a chance and now Shannon's giving me a chance, we will be able to take chances on individuals that would have never been able to get part of the restaurant franchising industry.
It removes a barrier to entry for people.
100%. Yeah. I love the part of it that is you already have this partnership from the parking lot perspective, because real estate's half the battle for franchising. And when I talk to brands that are getting into the early days of franchising and they sell, these deals, I think Shannon, you alluded to this, it can take 2 years before you find the lease, you sign the lease, you build out the space. And so you guys have removed a lot of that, which is amazing. But I'm curious, this inherently requires a little bit more effort on the franchising part to find those partners. So Shannon, can you tell me what that looks like? How will you find these franchise partners that you can really empower to be their own boss in this way?
Well, one of the things that we've been really fortunate is that because we made so much noise early on without any formally, tried and true or even paid for marketing, everything, not to use the pun, but everything, including you, Sam, came to us organically, right? People sought us out. They saw the noise we were making. They see the lines out the door. They see the robust catering business. They see that grown as a market disruptor. And now they're seeing all of the knockoffs, the grown knockoffs popping up around us. So, private equity and venture capital and some of the big boys even wanted to have conversations with us early on. Call it Cleveland Avenue, call it, Union Square Hospitality Group, the Dan Rose of the world, it's Work Capital. So even Paul Freeberg at the Continental Grain Company. I mean, we've had some major conversations with people over the years. And so we have a lot of warm leads with institutional franchisees. So I think that will be a place that we get to eventually. But we also have a ton of warm leads from people that just love grown and are from Louisville, Kentucky, or Brentwood, California, or call it Westport, Connecticut, who living in the DMV who are desperate for a better for you option in their own neighborhood for their own community. So I think initially it's going to be going back to those warm leads that we had when we first set up our franchise in 2019, right before COVID hit, and then going out with a fully launched social media campaign on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and letting folks know, hey, you know what? We've been in business for 9 years successfully, and we are getting ready to exclusively launch the grown franchise opportunity. We're not building out any more company owned stores. We don't have the desire to do it. We know that grown works. We had 6 units and another 6 units on the way, and then COVID hit. And I feel very strongly that we have the flagship. That is the mothership. That is Grown University. That's where we spend a lot of our time and energy. And it has everything that we need for it to be in order to let people know this is how we can do this thing. Now it's time for us to get out of that store and get out into the country and the world and show people how to do this. And we have an entire training program ready to go. We have professionals, whether it's a solid kitchen manager, a corporate executive chef, a training team, a CMO. We have an internal franchise sales coordinator. We have a director of operations that's open company stores. We have all of these amazing souls. We have a director of catering and events manager that can show them how to build out a robust catering business. We have all of these extraordinary human beings in place that love grown and live grown that we have at our disposal to walk our franchisees through this process and handhold them. And we also have a company that we've partnered with that is going to be building the shipping containers that's based in Suffield, Connecticut. So this isn't like okay, well, this would be cool if we could do this one day. No, we've got renderings, we've got designs, we've got blueprints, we've got a huge manufacturing warehouse ready to go.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, because that's obviously so key again, because franchising, an idea is great and you can scale an idea very quickly, but to scale a physical footprint, that takes a lot more time. So I love how there's that efficient sort of box that you're building here and can kind of plug and play. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Shannon, there have been some failures in companies that are like, hey, we're going to go change fast food forever and we're doing this healthier model. A high profile example that pops to mind is Life Kitchen from maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And there are any number of reasons why businesses don't make it. But, I do think that one of the things that prevented it from making it, and some other examples, was cost. I mean, just purely the cost of scaling a business that is that is higher quality, can get in the way. So I imagine this model you've built, these shipping containers that you can put grown into, solves for that to some degree. But tell me a little bit more about how you plan for grown to be the one that does work and can overcome some of those hurdles that have prevented these better for you fast food brands in the past.
It's such a great question. And obviously, I can't speak to Life Kitchen's model, but I did a ton of research on Life Kitchen because we started right around the same time. Life stood for Love Your Food Every Day. And they eventually transformed into a freezer model. They went to, you may remember this, to a frozen food company called Luvo.
Mm.
And at the time when they first came out, I was rooting for them so badly to make it because I was like, they're doing what I'm doing. We're doing the same thing. We need better for you concepts to win because if they win, we all win. And then by proxy, we have this massive role of impact that happens where people just have access to the good stuff. I don't know what happened with their scenario, but the one thing that I will say to you, Sam, is everybody has setbacks. The thing that I love about Zach is Zach sold his company after a successful launch, execution, and scaling. But if you ask him about the company, the first thing he's going to say and tell you is about all the fucking things they did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you the exact same thing. When we first opened our doors, we had lines out the door. We made $1 million in 3 months. Nobody could get enough of Grown. And because of that, we had all of these people that came to the table and said, can you do a Grown here? Can you do a Grown here? How about a Grown there? Hey, we like a Grown here. And because, when you're a new entrepreneur, you have to say yes to everything because you never know where your hit's going to come from. And my background is in the music industry. So it's like the sticky ball theory, throw some shit up against the wall and see what sticks. When I look back at my entrepreneurial journey, I should have said no to some of that shit. Right? Some of the stuff just wasn't the great fit for us, but you just never know. So you have to try it. So, without, kind of throwing mud at anyone's concept, I think there are good things that happen, there are shitty things that happen, and there are amazing things that happen. But ultimately, what I think is a differentiator, a market differentiator for Grown, is that every single day we are solving for our why.
Mm.
We are always asking the question, does this solve for our why? Our why is my son Walker in his battle with type 1 diabetes. He was 17 months old when he was diagnosed. I could not find him anything to eat that was substantial and made sense and was good for him that we all felt good about without mom guilt. At 17 months old, he's 18 years old now. He's getting ready to go to college. And, Walker was at the restaurant with me one day, Sam, and a couple of his friends had come in for smoothies after sports. And, when my kids are in the restaurant, they're helping out, taking dirty plates, helping customers, talking to people, not in an obnoxious way, but this is their family owned business, right? And so his buddies left and I was cleaning up something and he goes, Mom, let me ask you a question. And I was like, what's up, Walk? And he goes, if I never got type 1 diabetes, would you have created Grown? I was like, wow, Walk, I've actually never thought about this before. And, this is me working 18 hours a day, right? And I said, I actually don't think I would have. I had a mom that worked 90 hours a week. She hit the McDonald's drive-thru. My dad made dinner most nights during the week. If you hadn't gotten diagnosed with type 1, I probably would have cared about better for you food, but I was home making meals most days. It probably wouldn't have mattered to me that much. And he said, well, if I'm the reason that you were able to invent Grown and create it, I'm okay with the diabetes. Now, this is a guy that gets his finger pricked 7 to 10 times a day and gets 7 injections of insulin every day for the entirety of his life, the last 16 years. And he's okay with the diabetes because we created Grown. That's my why. And so Zach and I sit down with our team, when we sit down with potential franchisees, when we sit down with our IP attorneys, and we sit down with our investors, we are constantly asking the same question. Does this solve for why? Is this answering the problem of real food cooked slow for fast people? And if it does not answer that question and it does not solve that original problem, we just don't do it. And ultimately, the answer to your question in one word is Grown has a soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's missing for most of these people. A lot of these concepts are about making a shit ton of money. And they are some like get rich quick scheme. If it's got a buzzword, if it's on trend, we're doing it. And for us, it's never been about that. It's always been about creating the thing we wished existed, keeping our integrity, solving a problem for our community and our team members, making a lot of impact. And of course, at some point, it will make franchisees generational wealth. And that's wonderful. But by doing good.
Yeah. Well, it's very exciting. Shannon, Zach, I am so thrilled to hear about this new phase for Grown. Again, as somebody who's watched this business for many years. So congratulations. Very exciting to see where it goes in the future. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having us. We appreciate you as always.
That was my interview with Grown founder Shannon Allen and CFO Zach Cohen. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 7 takeaways. My first takeaway is that healthy food is more than just a trend for millions of customers. I've covered this industry now for 17 years, and I've seen a lot of health movements come and go. They are just fads, whether that's a specific type of diet, a specific way to prepare food, a specific ingredient, whatever it is. Oftentimes we treat these things as the future and it's surely here to stay. But a lot of things get blown up in the press and are very buzzy and then kind of go away. But the important point I want to make here is that healthy food itself is not one of them. freshly prepared food that is nutrient dense, that's not a fad. That's never going to go away. But it is also something that is very, very necessary for millions of customers. How many people are like Shannon's son, Walker, who has type 1 diabetes and need this healthy food to treat their bodies, to take care of themselves? There are so many people who, whether it's diabetes or some other condition they have, they need this food. And let's face it, America does have a health problem. There is an obesity crisis, and health food can serve that need as well. The restaurant industry itself needs to start looking at this, I think, again, not as a fad, not as something that will come and go, but as an opportunity. If you look at this as an opportunity to be able to serve more nutrient-dense foods like grown, but serve it in a more affordable fashion, a more accessible fashion, perhaps through a drive-thru, whatever that is, there are millions of potential customers out there who are going to want that. Yes, it's tricky, right? There are a lot of concepts who have come and gone, who have tried to do this, and it's not worked out for one reason or another. But it doesn't mean that this is, again, just a fad that has, faded into the past. This is an opportunity to treat these millions of customers who are looking for healthy foods to that thing they're looking for, that affordable, accessible, healthier food. And I think it's just a great opportunity for the industry, not just a passing fad. My second takeaway is that there is a shift in how Americans are perceiving processed foods. Shannon pointed this out. She said, look, people are upset. They're frustrated. They are tired of their options available to them because so many options have processed foods, have, chemicals or whatever it might be in the ingredients, and they want something better for their kids, for themselves, whatever that might be. And look, this is not a political statement, but just to say there is clearly activity now with RFK in position at the Department of Health and Human Services. There is this MAHA movement that's happening, Make America Healthy Again. No matter what you think of it, it's going to have an impact because it is there in the federal government. And you've already see them start to move on things like food dyes. The point is that this is going to indelibly shape the way people look at processed foods because it's in the media now. People are thinking about it, no matter the science of it, right? And I do think it's important we get the science right, and that is ongoing. But regardless of science, the perception of it is that people want less processed foods. And if that's the case, they're going to start demanding that from restaurants. So just to point out that people want foods that are less processed, and the restaurant industry needs to start thinking about how it's going to give it to them. My third takeaway is that your growth plan today may not be the growth plan that your brand needs. For Grown, Shannon said she thought this was all going to be, corporate-owned restaurants, and that Grown was going to scale and be corporately owned, and that everything was happy, hunky-dory pre-COVID. And then everything just kind of changed. And in particular, Shannon realized that franchising could be the way that they needed to grow Grown. The point here is that they made a pivot. They pivoted from corporate-owned to franchise, even when she didn't think it would be a franchise concept, even when she didn't think she'd be able to find franchisees. And I think that's an important lesson for other business leaders, is that whatever you are doing today, it might change tomorrow, and you have to be willing to make that pivot. Obviously, Shannon didn't make that decision lightly. This was something she was consulting with experts and spending a lot of time thinking about it. But the point is that it's hard to change, especially when you're well underway on one particular direction for your business. Be willing to make that tough decision and pivot, because again, your business may need a different growth plan than you have for it currently. Related to that, my fourth takeaway is that it might be easier to find 100 people who believe in you than to raise $100 million. I love that. Shannon heard that from a franchise expert as to why Grown could be a franchise concept. Shannon wants to grow fast. She used that quote that scale loves speed. And if you want to grow fast and you're going to stay corporate owned, it's a lot tougher because, again, you're going to have to raise $100 million or however much money it can allow you to do that, to open those restaurants, versus finding 100 people, franchisees, who believe in you, who believe in your mission and your concept, your business plan, and want to become a franchisee. That could be a lot easier. And with Grown, because it is so specifically mission-based and has such a dedicated mission to healthy food, perhaps that becomes easier to find those franchisees who want to partner with a business like that. So point here is, if you're debating on whether or not you should be a franchise concept, think about the fact that if you want to grow fast, think about raising $100 million versus finding 100 people who believe in your mission and want to partner with you. Which one's going to be faster to do? Because that's going to answer the question for you. My fifth takeaway is that if you want to go far, Go with someone beside you. That's a great African proverb that Shannon quoted in the interview, but that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Shannon has built a team, including Zach, that is set to take Grown to all parts of the country. And this is a lesson we've learned over and over here on Takeaway over the last couple of years. But if you have big aspirations for your brand, you cannot do it alone. You have to surround yourself with people who are maybe smarter than you, or at least know a lot more than you do about other ways to run a business. And if you do that, you set yourself up for better potential success. My sixth takeaway is that a turnkey franchise solution offers opportunity for people who previously faced barriers to business ownership. So this is not the first time we've seen the shipping container model. There's a few other concepts out there doing this, but I am really excited to see Grown going in this direction where their franchise model is to build out these shipping containers. They've partnered with Alan Lazowski, who owns millions of parking lots around the country. And they're able to offer this turnkey solution where they can build out a shipping container, help find one of these parking lots to pop a Grown into it, and get you up and running and cash flow positive in 90 days, according to Shannon. That's incredible. But the point I want to make here again is the fact that this could be a solution for so many people, members of disenfranchised communities, people who want to be their own boss, want to own a business, but simply cannot because it is out of reach from a cost perspective. This model that Grown has created with these shipping containers, this turnkey solution, lowers the cost to build them out, lowers the cost to get into the business, and could become that solution for those folks who, I'm sure are great operators, are great members in their community, could be excellent restaurant leaders, but that one thing that's eluding them is that cost, that ability to come up with the money to be able to buy in. So this is a great solution that Grown is pursuing, and I'm very excited to see how this model could take off among other brands. My seventh and final takeaway is that your why can steer your business through the opportunities that come your way. Shannon painted the picture of, what things looked like for Grown in the early years. It was really exciting, came out of the gate strong. Grown was making millions of dollars in its first year. People started flocking to Shannon and saying, I want to open a Grown in my neighborhood, and I want to open one in my city. And they did have 6 locations open before COVID. They had letters of intent for many others. And Shannon was saying yes to a lot of things. Now they've really retooled everything, and Shannon's realized you can't say yes to all those opportunities. You're going to get the stars in your eyes and, hand your business to everybody who wants it. And you can't do that. You have to really stay strong and focused, because it could take your business into different directions that you do not want to go in, or that would be bad for it. And she pointed out that they have this why. The why is to serve the needs of parents like her back when her son Walker was a toddler and she was scared for not being able to find the right food for him. Now Walker's all grown up, and she told the story of how he's in the restaurant, realizing all of this was because of him and because the need that she had in that moment. And she wants to serve that. She wants to get that opportunity to millions of other parents who are in the same situation as her. So with that why, she can steer through the opportunities that come her way, use that as the North Star to figure out which opportunity is right and which is wrong. What is your why? You might know that saying from Simon Sinek is, wrote that book, Start With Your Why. Great book. I read it. I highly recommend it. But it's your purpose. It's your reason for being. What is your company's reason for being, your purpose? And how can it be the North Star that guides you through all the opportunities that come your way? Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again, and talk to you next week. Nation's Restaurant News is launching the 2025 Menu Masters Collaboration video series, and this season is our most exciting yet. Join us behind the scenes as the 2025 Menu Masters award-winning chefs from Chili's Grill and Bar, Wendy's, True Food Kitchen, Fuzzy's Taco Shop, Iron Hill Brewery and Restaurant, and digital innovator Alexandra Lourdes team up with top students from Johnson & Wales University for a live culinary collaboration. Their goal is to create a unique menu to be served only at the Menu Masters celebration, sponsored by Ventura Foods on May 17th in Chicago. Make sure you subscribe now to the Menu Masters YouTube channel and don't miss an episode. For more info on the Menu Masters celebration, visit menumasters.com.